Hello and welcome to Breaking Bread with Rivaaj Maharaj, where nothing is off the table. For today's episode, I wanted to talk about the election results within Denmark and how Mette Frederiksen and her party have not done as well as they had hoped to, despite her having called these snappy elections. So without further ado, let's get into it. I've got an article here from the BBC. Danish PM fails to secure majority in party's weakest election showing since 1903. Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen, Social Democrats, won the most votes in Tuesday's Danish general election but slumped to its weakest performance since 1903 as her coalition bloc failed to secure a majority. With 21.9% of the vote, Frederiksen's party still has by far the most seats, but her left-wing grouping has fallen well short of the 90 seats required to form a majority. The Social Democrats have been in power since 2019, and Frederiksen told the cheering supporters she was sorry that we did not get more votes. In a message of defiance, she added, "There is nothing today that can make me sad that the Social Democrats have once again become the Danes' absolute favourable political party."
It is the worst result for the Social Democrat Party in more than a century. It reveals that while Mette Frederiksen strides across the European stage, at home she's a fading star. A win, however, is a win.
I remain ready to take on the responsibility of serving as Denmark's Prime Minister for the next 4 years. However, there is little to suggest that forming a government will be easy. A new parliament must work together, we must reach out to one another, and we must find compromises.
Frederiksen had taken a leap of faith, calling an early election after she was praised for her steadfast handling of President Trump's threat to take over Greenland, the autonomous territory of Denmark. And ultimately, while this result shows she doesn't hold all the cards, she does have the better hand to win a third successive term in office. One of her current coalition partners, right-wing Venstre, which also saw its support fall, has ruled out working with her again.
But unfortunately, there is no clear blue majority either. That is why I would also like to say tonight to someone I have known for many years, Lars Løkke Rasmussen, that I now believe we should try to form a blue centrist government, as I suggested on Sunday. The opportunity is there, Lars.
Instead, the centrist party of the moderates, with 14 seats, seems best placed to form an alliance. It means the party, led by current Foreign Minister and once Prime Minister, seems likely to find itself in the position of kingmaker, deciding who makes up the next government and leads the country.
One thing is that this is a small country with 6 million inhabitants in a world of 8 billion that is in upheaval with war in Iran and war in Ukraine. We need to come together. We are small. We must unite. We must not be divided. We must not be red. We must not be blue. We must work together.
Elsewhere, the anti-immigration far-right Danish People's Party and the Green Left recorded significant surges in support. 90 seats are needed for a majority in Denmark. Neither side, the left nor the right, managed to achieve that on Tuesday night, meaning potentially tough negotiations lie ahead, ones which could last days or even weeks, as parties try to work out who they will or won't work with. What it does show, however, is that Denmark's political landscape is increasingly split, at a time when many people want support and stability.
The Social Democrats' main right-wing rival, the Liberal Party, Venstre, also had its worst showing for a century, with just 10.1% falling behind the Green Left SF. Frederiksen still has a chance to stay in power for a third term. However, Denmark is typically run by coalition governments, and so tough negotiations, which could take days or weeks, now loom. 12 different political parties were on the ballot paper, and this tightly contested race has come right down to the wire. Claiming a total of 84 seats, the red bloc of the left-wing parties have clinched a small lead over the blue bloc on the right, who have 77 seats combined. Both blocs have fallen short of the 90 seats that are needed for a majority in Denmark's 179-seat parliament. It is not yet clear which bloc will be able to build a majority. I've been responsible for this wonderful country for almost 7 years, Frederiksen continued. I'm still ready to take a responsibility as Denmark's Prime Minister. However, the moderates, a small party holding 14 seats in the middle, now have power to act as kingmaker, and all eyes are on its leader, former Prime Minister Lars Løkke Rasmussen. He took the lead in handling the Greenland standoff with the United States and went viral for his fist bump following a meeting with Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio in Washington. With his signature pipe in hand and surrounded by supporters on Tuesday night, Rasmussen told the crowd he favored forming a government across the center. We're standing in the middle, he said. We're ready. But trolls Lund Poulsen, who leads the Liberals, the Blue Bloc's biggest party, has flatly ruled out going into government again with the Social Democrats and urged Rasmussen to join him on the right. It's possible to get a new direction in Denmark, he said. So, if this election has taught one thing, the Danes are split. I think they're fed up of the right and they're equally fed up of the left, because the split is actually down the center. And you have now the center coming in to form, coming in as kingmaker. So, I think it's safe to say that the left are losing ground, having done so bad for the first time since 1903 is actually shameful. And it goes to show that Europeans are now fed up. They're tired. You see, this war in Ukraine had the Iranian war not started, the war in Ukraine would have continued to have rallied the Europeans behind their left-wing governments. Because whilst energy was affected by the war with Ukraine in Europe, the European governments were able to, weather that storm. It was difficult, but they were trying to weather it, and their fall was coming at a slower pace. However, the Iranian debacle, and because of its effects on the European energy infrastructure, has now led to people questioning these green policies, because you're now asking yourself, we've cut off Russian energy, we've cut off our nuclear supply, we cannot support ourselves, and now the supply that we were relying on is now being interrupted. So you're going to find an exacerbated decline in these left-wing governments within Europe.
In Denmark, Social Democrat Mette Frederiksen has handed in her resignation to the king, but also says she is ready to assume the role of prime minister again. This after her three-party coalition suffered a significant defeat in Tuesday's parliamentary election.
Jeg ærgerlig over. Selvfølgelig jeg ærgerlig over, at vi ikke fik flere stemmer. Jeg havde også håbet på et bedre resultat. Men der er ikke noget i dag, der kan få mig til at blive ked af, at Socialdemokratiet igen er blevet danskernes absolut foretrukne politiske parti.
And again, it may be an intended or it may be an unintended consequence of Donald Trump's actions in Iran. But we all know that the current United States administration is not happy with the, by and large, most European and UK and the UK's administrations, because of the policies that they have implemented. They're contrary to what the United States administration is currently doing. So there's no alliance there, absolutely none. And you're seeing it play out every day. You've seen the Europeans again embracing their mad, insane policies to the point where they haven't even been able to take a proper stand against Iran. Now you've got the Americans who had threatened to pull out of Iran with only 3% of their energy infrastructure being affected, whereas the Europeans would suffer catastrophically. Now, their inability to have laid down the rules and the law with the Iranians at the beginning and showed some sense of authority, coming in there as impotent vassals, sitting on the fence, has now landed them in a problem, and one that they cannot deal with. And, I've always said, these wars are nice to, being behind the Ukrainian cause was a nice thing when you didn't have to worry about your energy bill. But when it starts hitting your pockets, then, people start thinking twice when they've got to make these sacrifices. Because Ursula von der Leyen and Kaya Kallas telling you to make a sacrifice along with Sadiq Khan and Keir Starmer, they're not making those sacrifices. They're still being, flown first class and business class private jets. They're still being chauffeured, driven by the police, by armed bodyguards, by, cars that are bulletproof and still run on petrol. So their carbon footprint is not affected in any way. Their electricity bills are covered by the taxpayer. But they're telling you, the taxpayer, that you should stand united with Ukraine because Ukraine is being threatened and Ukraine's sovereignty rests on your sovereignty. So they sell it to you in this way, and now the people are catching on. This result in Denmark is a case in point. So I think we're going to see a lot more of these elections going in this direction and further right as these energy issues continue in Europe. So I want to thank you for spending time with us. We look forward to seeing you in the next episode, and please remember to like, share and subscribe as it helps us with the algorithm and it helps our channel to grow.